Welcome, you guys. Thank you for coming to, it's not a podcast. Thank you for coming to the live. We just hit our podcast up today. Okay, so this just in, we have reports that the U.S. border seized a hair shipment from Xinjiang, China. Um, and they seized this shipment for violation of human rights issues. So basically, they said that the hair came from a factory that was basically a detainment camp for a certain Muslim ethnic group in China. I don't want to butcher their names. I don't know how to pronounce, but Uighurs and Kazakhs. So these are two ethnic groups in China that exist, and they are Muslim. And U.S. Border Control Protection says that, they said that basically these people are being forced against their will to make hair and beauty products. They seized hair, they seized other types of beauty products. They didn't really specify. I think the story is too fresh, and I don't know if they sent out this information. But, this goes down to business ethics. As you know, a lot of people do outsource to China and to Asia, Africa, Latin America when it comes to products and services. Some of these services can be call centers. Some of these services can be factory production, partially because the cost to live in these countries are a lot lower. So that means that it costs a lot less to pay for employees. It costs a lot less for production. So with that being said, sometimes you might even find like children working in factories, or you come to visit some of these factories and you see that it doesn't pass a certain standard or level that would be favorable to work in. And so in a lot of these places, maybe some people aren't educated, or they're not afforded other opportunities in life outside of working at these factories. So it's almost that like they're forced to work at these factories because they need income. And when it comes to that, they're almost forced to take any type of rate and not really speak up for themselves or speak out against any of the conditions that occur at these factories. So, Hair by Connie is a very conscious factory. I visit all the factories that I deal with. I mean, I'm there. I visit and I see inside, even if they have resting quarters for some of the workers, I go in there as well and I check them out and I see what they look like. I try to make sure there are no children working in the factories. In terms of sanitation, I mean, there's a definite difference between the code of sanitation in China versus here in the States. But just living in China for 5 years, I kind of can understand at least what is acceptable there and, what I won't find acceptable. So I try to make sure that, even down to where the hair is sourced, I try to make sure that it's coming from or going through people who actually pay fairly for the hair. This is just 101 with fair trade. I feel a little bit skeptical about getting some Indian hair because I know a lot of hair is stolen from the temples. And for me, I just think if you are, sacrificing your hair for spiritual reasons, I'm not trying to get in the way of all of that. All that energy, power, and that, I'm not trying to take that, resell it. I want to make sure it's coming from someone who intentionally wanted to give their hair, and they're also being paid what they should from this hair. So let's get into more of the details of this story. It's like everywhere. I've seen it. Now I'm on time.com. So U.S. Customs seizes 13-ton shipment of human hair weaves. And they're saying that they believe the hair to be cut from prisoners in these Chinese internment camps. So 13 tons is about 26,000 pounds. That's a lot of hair. That's a lot of retail potential. And, it's very important that when you are getting from overseas, if you are buying from manufacturers, you need to see and know how they're operating. And I understand everybody can't necessarily go and visit, but I know, for instance, you can ask to see company certificates. If you are going through third-party services like Alibaba, AliExpress, they will have the companies that have certain certification levels. Alibaba will even give them certificates in terms of, how they function, how they operate. And, when I do have sometimes these conversations with factory owners, they're really open in terms of letting me see what's going on, because they don't want to be associated with this type of treatment. But just some reality, when I was living in China, I did hear snippets through the grapevine of these internment camps that were mostly full of Muslim Chinese people. I mean, I didn't know that there were Muslim Chinese people until I moved to China. But the community is very, very big, which is pretty cool, because I know that there are lots of people in the Middle Eastern community that come to trade and live in China, as well as African, and a lot of them are Muslim. So it kind of provides a sense of community. You can buy halal foods. You can, I don't know if they pray, but these cultures are welcomed, I would say, through the foreigners that do come and do business. So when I'm looking at it through that lens, I was very surprised to even know that not only are there Muslims in China, but there's some xenophobia going on with Muslims being in internment camps. So it's the thing with news reporting in China, you're not going to see a lot of the negative for political reasons. And, a lot of times you can't really talk about it or ask about it, or even if someone knows about it, they're not going to be apt to share their story, because you can get in trouble, especially for a Chinese local. There are things like social scores, credit scores that are tied to your social conduct. If you're seen speaking out or against, or you say something negative about the government or something that's going on in terms of China, your credit score can go down, and that can affect a lot of things in terms of you getting a job, traveling in and out of China, getting a job, what's the term? Upgrading your title at work, your level of work. I can't think of the word right now, but a lot of Chinese people are very weary about this. So it's not something that is going to be reported on the news. It's definitely something that's going to be more underground. So when we started hearing and seeing things about this, a lot of people didn't know. And then what can you do? You think about human rights issues and maybe the UN getting involved, but who's going to take that step? Who's going to say something to make sure that the people are represented and they have a voice? So I think now it's coming out, of course, through something of this nature, them seizing what was at the border. So it is a true story in terms of there are detainment camps with Muslims there, but this is only an allegation that has not been, it hasn't been publicly concluded that the people who have been made to make the wigs are forced labor from these Chinese Muslim ethnic groups. that have been detained. So just in general, what does that mean for your business? You want to make sure you're not doing anything that violates human rights. Again, no children should be working. There are child labor laws around the world now because of the old days. You know, we don't have to have children work legally for people to make it. We are a little bit more modernized in that there are other ways families can survive. Again, what does the environment of the factory look like? Does it look humane? Does it look like a nice, clean place to work? Are there bathrooms? Do they have breaks? How much are they getting paid? In China, there's a huge disparity between the wage salary there and that of what's here in America, and I understand that. So, something may be low for here, but in terms of the standard of living over there, it may be just fine. So you want to make sure that you're kind of abreast culturally with what's going on with whatever country you solicit services from. And also, if you do see something, try to speak out, try to speak up, try to go to the correct authorities to make sure that something is being done and, is rectified. Because it's a really sad situation. And at the end of the day, what if you had about 26,000 pounds of hair that got stopped and is seized? And on top of that, not only are they going to take it away if it is concluded that this shipment was made from slave labor, detainment camps, but also you might have to pay fines depending on your knowledge. Did you know that this was happening and you tried to get away with it? Will your license be stripped away in terms of you importing or exporting anything again? Is this going to go on your record? These are all types of issues that you would have to face, with not knowing. So it's very important. Now I'll say this. I think that, if you are just shipping a couple of items, those aren't big ticket items that catch the attention of authorities. It's usually huge shipments of things. So, story time, I go to the bag market all the time. The bag market has leathers, it has all types of bags, whether it be counterfeits, knockoffs, or just regular bags. And I remember going inside of this this store that sold fake Louis Vuittons. And so it was just very, very interesting when the lady broke down how things of that nature were selling. Okay, so you have a Louis Vuitton bag and it's going to say made in Paris. Well, there are Chinese factories authorized by Louis Vuitton to construct a majority of the bag, and those are in Shenzhen. So when you get to the factory level, just like Adidas, Nikes, they have factories in China. I would ask her, okay, so you guys are making the bags or you're not making the bags? What are you making, the official bags? Are you making the unofficial bags? And then she said, we're making both. We get an order from the company, the designer, to make a certain brand of bag. You make it, and then they are made in such a way to be sold. So, for instance, there may be a special tag, a special code, or something that will be ready to go into stores. Now, this same technology, same manufacturer will also make a similar bag that won't be store ready. It'll look very similar. It'll be the same process, but these won't be store ready. They won't have certain barcodes, and within that, they'll just flip those on the streets or sell them at the bag markets. And then also in the counterfeit world, there are just so many different levels. There are counterfeit bags that cost in the hundreds to thousands, not as much as the actual bag, but it's like, okay, well, this is the same leather or this is the same hardware that is used to make this authentic bag. So it's going to cost more than something that is used with cheaper material. So it's a whole industry in and of itself. So, she put me up on the game with that. And also, she mentioned that, because I was going in, I was questioning, I was asking, like, so, okay, you have this fake bag, and what happens when you ship it? So she said it depends on where I'm shipping to. Some countries have higher security, if you will, like the States, like European countries, some European countries for the most part. They try to keep the integrity of counterfeit and intellectual property. So, Western countries, a lot of them do have a higher security when it comes to border patrol. So when things like these come in, they get stopped. But you have other countries, these are considered your lower GDP countries, maybe a lot of third world countries, countries in Africa, countries in Latin America, or non-Western countries that allow any type of goods to come in. No one's really checking, one, because they're probably buying the cheaper version of the goods. So the actual company, they don't have a real true presence in these countries, so they're not really afraid of losing on that money, so they don't really say anything. They also probably don't put trademarks or register any type of intellectual property rights in these countries for the following reasons. Like, if you're in this country and you have a real bag, you probably had to leave that country, go to another country, and buy the real bag before you even brought it back. So there's so many different levels and there's so many levels to the counterfeit industry, and there are also levels to, theories, ideologies behind why certain countries can allow so many and can't. So with that said, the lady said, if I'm shipping a counterfeit bag to the US, for instance, I'm going to ship 1 or 2. I'm not going to ship more than 5 because that's going to cause attention. There's no receipt, all of this stuff right there. And so it just made sense when she was breaking it down. So, anytime you have a huge shipment, you do have to be on guard. You have to be cautious because a lot of times people do, push drugs. They push fake counterfeit items into these other items, and they're hiding it. So they were probably just going to, they probably saw a big shipment. And maybe the general rule for Border Patrol is if there's a shipment that's over this much money in terms of the amount declared, or if there's a certain amount of weight, we have to check it. We have to check through and through. So maybe them checking this hair, they saw that the shipping label said, oh, it's coming from this region, and we know this region has these detainment camps. You never know, and honestly, it's not going to come from the Chinese side. It's really going to come from the Western side or other people. But I just thought it was really ironic that, the U.S., because of systemic racism, they're calling out another country on their conduct being inhumane, but it's like y'all are also being inhumane at the same time. So how do you call the police on the police? But whatever. We also know that, China and the U.S. have been in a trade war officially since 2018, I believe, 2017, 2018. So it's not like people don't really know that these things are going on, just like the child trafficking, sex trafficking, drugs coming in and out of the country. There's so many back end deals that we don't even see. And a lot of times countries know oh, this is wrong, maybe I should report them, but maybe I have too much money coming into this country in another area, in terms of like maybe we're doing a different type of trade. So if I blow the whistle in this area, then they're going to possibly increase the tariff, increase the taxes, or they might stop the trade altogether. So there's so much politics that plays into this, but getting to the root, since this is hair, one, yes, if it is coming from this area, and I think they reported that the factory had barbed wire all around. I've visited very many factories. I've never seen barbed wire around a factory. Like, they so want you to come in and spend money. They're not like trying to keep you out. So clue number one, there's something fishy going on in here. And so let's see. It says that the shipment was made by Locke County Macing Hair Product Company Limited. And in May, a similar detention was placed on Hetian Howling Hair Accessories Company, although those weaves were synthetic. So it seems as though, they've already had some type of reporting coming before. And so maybe this just kind of tipped them off a little bit more. But what does this ultimately mean? Because I sell my products through Shopify. And so I remember that Shopify sent me a message one day and said that, okay, you can continue to run your business as usual, but for any sales that you make on your human hair products, we are going to put a hold on it until you can prove that your factories are legitimate and they aren't in violation of any humanitarian laws. And so I was like, wow, okay, so I needed to show certifications. I needed to show invoices to match what was sold versus what my factories were producing. And, I was thinking like, wow, okay, so this is pretty interesting. This affects me as a Black woman, and this also affects many other Black businesses that sell hair, because 90% of the people who support this industry, who buy hair products, are Black women. 90%. And I'm only talking about the wigs, the weaves, and some of the extensions. So, I get the intention, but this definitely affects Black business. So I had to make sure that I did what I needed to do as someone in the industry, someone pioneering in this industry, to make sure that they knew that I was legitimate, and also to kind of help other people. I put a lot of people in my hair groups on Facebook on notice. We had a big conversation about Shopify, but I mean, at the end of the day, I definitely don't want to support child labor. I don't want to support slave labor. I don't want to support terrible working conditions. So it's so important that you do your due diligence. And, really the only way to see the factory is to go see it. But again, me doing business consulting in China, I would work with people who would say, hey, I can't get to China this time around. Here's the address. Can you make yourself known? Let them know you're working on my behalf. If not to just see what was going on, check the quality of their products. Make sure they weren't, dicking around with their orders and their money and their time. And that was fun because it did give me the opportunity to see lots of manufacturers in China in terms of how they operate, what's normal, what's not normal. But just to be on the flip side of things, there are lots of factories that do care about the environment. I visited many factories that had machines that would recycle the water, because once you're cleaning the hair and you are chemically altering it with dyes, colors, and stuff, that's very terrible on the water supply. So they'd have this huge vacuum and they put the hair or the water in there that they use, and they clean it and release it back into the environment. So I think there are a lot of good companies that, they're in business and they're making sure that they're not doing anything inhumane, which is very important, so that good business continues to flow. But you also just have to be super aware of where your money is going, and who and what you're supporting at the end of the day, because a lot of times you're just buying the end product. You don't see the sweat and the tears that went behind that. Simply when I went on my Southeast Asian hair factory tour and I visited some factories in the Philippines, they let me know during Corona time if there were any. They tested everyone. If there were any villages where there were workers right from the beginning who maybe came from Wuhan, China, or came from China, they were all tested. If there was anything positive for Corona, they paused in terms of getting those hair supplies and providing it to consumers, which is very important, because at the end of the day, I'm not trying to spread Corona. It definitely can be lethal. And at the end of the day, your reputation is everything in business world. So just ethics. Do you have ethics as a company? Are you a conscious company? Do you have morals that you try to stand by? Because a lot of times you do hear sayings like, don't get your feelings involved, it's just business, or don't, money doesn't think, money doesn't have a color, it doesn't have a race, it's green or it's red in terms of where the money comes from. So yes, that is true, but at the end of the day, so many people die and are mistreated at the hands of business, and corporate greed is real. I remember watching a documentary basically just saying that, for what it seems like, Trump is not necessarily a big business guy. He just throws his money around at different things and hopes to get an investment back, or return on his investment. And so, I thought that was really interesting. This is actually Dirty Money on Netflix, that series. And so there was one deal that he entered into that kind of crossed hairs with some mafia people between two countries that were feuding. And basically, it could have started a war. And of course, he's American, so who knows what that would have done. But the gain on this money that he would have made, or this business deal, was only $5,000. So essentially they asked, how great of danger would you put yourself in, your community in, countries in, for $5,000? It's a very true question. A lot of times, I learned this in law school actually, when a car company, for instance, is calculating their numbers. They know cars aren't perfect. They know that there are recalls on their cars every year for, malfunctions, things that need to be repaired. So they have to calculate into their bottom line, on average, how many lives will be lost in case this car malfunctions on its own. It's something that the company, because of a manufacturing defect, would cause. And so if it's not too high, they will go ahead with this car, this model, even though it may have the potential of defecting. This is like your risk analysis, okay? Risk analysis, and lots of companies have to have this, but a lot of times it deals with people dying or people getting sick. Like if you eat some Bluebell ice cream, you're going to see that or not that you're going to see, because again, this goes into your risk analysis. Hey girl, basically, there is some type of chemical used as a preservative to keep ice cream cold, and it's the same type of chemical that's found in antifreeze for your automobiles. Now, the risk analysis of this chemical is so low in terms of it having a harmful effect on your body in that one time that you would eat the ice cream, that the FDA, Food and Drug Association of the United States, says that you don't have to put this on the label because it's not going to have so high of an effect that it's riskful and harmful and the person won't die. So a lot of companies can get away with this, but again, they have to go into the lab, do their research and development, and weigh their risk with their losses, and basically present that in order to be certified, in order to put, things into the environment that can kill or harm, or are likely to kill or harm. So, a lot of companies go through that, ask about that, ask to see this paperwork. Now, of course, when it comes to hair, there haven't been a lot of risks in terms of people dying, the end user dying, the client dying after they buy it. But, go back. Are there some risks on the other side? Are there children who are working who should not be working? Are there people working all sorts of crazy hours with, not too little pay? Is it fair? And these are the things that you should look into, so that you make sure you're making sure that you're not exchanging money for blood money. And that's what it all boils down to. So I just want you guys to know a little bit about business ethics. Please adopt some if you don't have any. But just try to have a really nice code of ethics that you can stand by, because at the end of the day, your integrity speaks louder than any dollar, any amount of clout that you can have, and that's really important. So, really quick before we go, I have this podcast called Polyglamorous Podcast, and I talked about how I love Ben & Jerry's in terms of what they do for the community. They're very vocal and active for Black Lives Matter and for minorities and for, just doing things right. They're a very conscious company. However, Ben & Jerry's was acquired, I believe, in 2000 by Unilever. And Unilever is one of the largest and oldest multinational corporations in the world. And so Unilever's story did start as a soap. However, they soon acquired wholly, even on their board level, this company way back in the day, like in the 1800s, called the Royal Niger Company, which basically was a company that owned a lot of land protectorates, had land protectorates in what is now known as southern Nigeria, before Nigeria was formed. And so they conned a lot of local chieftains and tribesmen for their land in exchange for money, because they wanted the palm oil. They wanted to extract palm oil from a lot of the vegetation that was there. So not only did they con them by contract, these contracts were in English, and they didn't express in text what they spoke about. When the Africans got wind of this and wanted to do their own thing, they kind of fought them for it. They, at this point, had over 30 posts in the region, and it was like a monopoly. And then on top of that, they used force. There was an actual physical altercation, which caused one main chieftain who had his own company to pretty much vanish, just get out of the land. And so when Britain wanted to claim the territory, they bought all of those pieces of land from the RNC, and then later on, Unilever acquires the RNC. However, it wasn't just an acquisition and, okay, we're doing this. It was like everything, all the money, all the wealth, all the byproducts from years and years of bad deals and wars now is absorbed into Unilever. So they have a big boost off of blood money. So that made me think, like, wow, here's Ben and Jerry's on one hand, rah, 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 fight for the people, but at the same time, it's like your mother country or your mother company has been in the mix of like bad blood, you know, stealing, looting, bad contracts, and whatever spoils came from that. So it just made me think, like, wow, I know that if I'm giving them money, they in turn are giving Unilever money. So has Unilever changed its ideology? Has it changed some of its intentions from back then until now? I'm not sure. That's something that's obviously not so public, but you would have to actually see what they're connected to, what products they're in their factories. Again, going in and seeing where they are. I mean, Unilever is in the Asias, the Africas, like they're everywhere. So I later saw an article given to me by my friend Peter. Shout out to Peter. Thank you for the support. Basically saying that Ben and Jerry's put their foot down morally and ethically, saying that if we go into this acquisition, meaning that you guys buy us out, you must make sure that the following things are done. So one, they said you can't change our ice cream components in terms of what it's made of, the way it tastes. Also, they made them donate $5 million to a certain charity. They didn't say. Then they also made them pay $5 million to just grants supporting minority-owned businesses. And on top of that, one of the things that Ben and Jerry's did was they created a separate board of directors that was different from the board of directors of Unilever. So that way they can make sure that whatever goals that they have aligned with their purpose stay on the table and they are not soon voted out and done away with. Because, I mean, a multinational corporation like Unilever, they've been getting money since the beginning. So you know that's a huge pillar of their company. I don't really know if they're so conscious on their own. However, this corporate structure that Ben and Jerry's made was super pivotal because it allowed for them to keep their integrity, but also hold Unilever accountable for their mission. If you're going to acquire us, then you need to make sure that you're doing X, Y, and Z. And that is such a chess move. I didn't even know that could happen structurally within a company, within a business. So I'm glad that that exists. So if I am ever in a situation where I need to merge or someone wants to acquire me and the numbers are looking right, where is your spirit? Okay? Because at the end of the day, for me, money is not everything. You know, yes, one of the goals of having a business is to make money, but I also want to help a lot of people, and I would definitely sleep a lot better at night and walk a lot better in the day if I knew that the money that I was making was going and coming from a good source and for a good purpose. So I just like, hats off to Ben and Jerry's. You guys are still, you're still welcome to the cookout. And I definitely learned, like, chess is chess all day. So I hope you guys learned something about business ethics, corporate compliance. That deals with that as well. Are people complying with their laws? Are they operating legally? But also how you can structure your agreements. Negotiations are everything. You can negotiate any and everything. So don't ever leave a business deal feeling like you left something on the table that you can't live without. Yes, you have to give and take, but don't lose out on your morals. At the end of the day, do the right thing, and the rest is history. So I want to thank you guys again for joining in on this live today. I want you to subscribe, like, share with your friends. Go to my YouTube. I want you to subscribe, like, share with your friends. Also, sign up at www.hairbyconnie.com. You can get exclusive deals, newsletters, and also access to our blog. So you guys have a super wonderful day, and keep it positive.